Hello everybody, welcome back to OMB Reviews. I am the critic who is a cynic. Hope you're doing well. Today we're doing a review of the brand new film Dune Part 2. I have not done a review on the channel in quite a while. I apologize for anyone who's been looking forward to those reviews, but I just got back from the theater, just finished writing my review over on Criticlist, and so if you want a more condensed understanding of my thoughts, it might be good to check it out over on Criticlist. And as you can see, my score right now is, yeah, there's some things that I really like, but there's one major thing that I do not like, and it will get into spoilers, but I'll let y'all know when that's actually going to be coming about. For now, let's go ahead and pull this up just so that way y'all can see exactly what the current state of this film is as far as people who are just movie buffs, who are fans of films, who like to go see films, which is why the Criticalist community is just so great. Before going any further with this review, though, please make sure you smash that like button, light up that fire button, also smash the rumble button as well, and also make sure you're subscribed to the channel with that bell notification. That way you know every time a video or live stream goes live on the channel. So Dune Part 2, this is a film by director Denis Villeneuve, and I have been a huge fan of Denis Villeneuve for a very long time. Some of my favorite films of recent memory actually have come from him, whether it be movies like Prisoners, whether it be the amazing film that was Sicario, and even though he didn't direct it, Sicario 2. Of course, the big one being the first Sicario film because it is just that fantastic. He also did, of course, Dune Part 1, which was pretty good. It was a film that I enjoyed quite a bit. I had actually read the book, was listening to the audiobook version, which cut off right around the time of the end of that first movie actually came about, and so I went in with some of that knowledge, with some idea, with some recognition of the characters in the back of my mind. And so when I finally saw the film, I thought, okay, obviously some changes were made. Obviously they had to go in certain directions. But in the end, I thought, okay, this film is still gorgeous to look at. Beautiful visual effects, and there's some really good stuff going on, despite the fact that I do have some hang-ups with all of these things. Now, this movie, I will say right now, Part 2, when it deals with the technical achievements, when it deals with some of the things that were really great about the first film, I think this movie honestly excels. I think this movie honestly blows the visual effects of the first film out of the water in certain instances. I think that, for instance, when you actually are watching the sequences where they are riding the sandworms, that to me was some of the best filmmaking and some of the most exciting moments in the entire cinema. Especially watching it in IMAX, it honestly, you felt like not only were you watching this happen, but you almost felt like you were there, and it was really cool. So shout out to Greg Fraser, who I know had done the cinematography for this. He's done a ton of other films too, and his work has really started to, I think, become more and more fine-tuned every time he gets onto a new project. And so there is some really great stuff in this movie. Again, especially when it comes to cinematography, I think that also when you look into the visual effects too, those work hand in glove in many ways with the cinematography as well. Things look really, really good. Whether it's the large sequences with lots and lots of people, again, they were able to spend the money, $190 million on this film, and they were able to spend it very effectively. There's definitely going to be some things throughout that don't really, I think match kind of the beauty of some of the other sequences. The worms look phenomenal. I think that the actual worms in the first movie might have looked just a little bit better, maybe just a little bit more polished. There's obviously a lot more going on with the worms in this movie, a lot more going on in general, and so it makes a lot of sense that that would be the case, but I do just think that it had to be said in that way. One of the issues I do have with the cinematography and with the visual effects are some of the gel choices. So you know how sometimes it's clear that they're shooting a night sequence in the daytime, and so they have to put the gels on to make things look darker. Yeah, there was some really bad use of that in the first film, and there's some really bad use of that in this movie too, and that just kind of took me out of it because it was like, you really couldn't film at night, or you couldn't find a way to make this look a little bit more natural. I don't know. It just did not really look as good as it could have, and it's really sad because there's some really great stuff going on, especially with the performances. The acting in this movie is absolutely fantastic. So first off, I gotta give a huge shout out to Timothée Chalamet, who just honestly blows this performance out of the water, does a great job portraying Paul Atreides. I think that he really was able to, show that growth from being a much more timid character in the first film to now being, right, not just the Duke of Arrakis, but also the leader of this jihad, right, of all these different things, right, for anyone who knows knowledge and has knowledge of the book, right, that's the direction that this character is going into. And so he is just absolutely phenomenal. I think that Rebecca Ferguson playing the lady Jessica is also phenomenal. A lot of people have been talking about Austin Butler, who portrays The character, again, I just came out of it, Fade Rotha, right? And he also does a great job too. It's one of those interesting characters, one of those interesting, character designs from the book that I actually really did appreciate how nuanced he decided to be with it, how he started to make it his own, but it was also still felt a lot like Fade Rotha. Very different than like the 1970s whatever movie, right? The one that I'm not usually a big fan of, like a very different version. I think what Sting played that character, so a different take, but still a very good take nonetheless, very good, solid performance nonetheless, coming from Austin Butler. The one to me, though, that is actually shining more than anyone else, and someone that I just loved every single second that he was on screen on, was Javier Bardem. Javier Bardem's Stilgar was honestly the best part of this movie, not only because Javier Bardem's just a phenomenal actor, but he brought a lot of levity to the role. He was almost the comedic relief in some instances, and I thought that it was very well played. I thought his character was well written, and it obviously ultimately comes down to it being portrayed well by Javier Bardem, and I think that he's able to do that very well. You have some other supporting characters in the film. Obviously, Zendaya is in the film, and I thought that her performance was okay. She's never really been known to be a great actress per se, but I thought that she at least does the job that she's supposed to do. There's more on that character in a second. Josh Brolin's back. I think he does a fine job. Florence Pugh, not really in the film all that much, but she's doing fine. Dave Bautista, not in the film all that much, and I'm kind of over his shtick. He yells a lot. That's all he can really do. And it doesn't really come across. He physically looks like this menacing person, but when you are someone who is a wrestling fan who watched him for a long time in WWE, it just, to me, I'm like, I don't understand how he has a career other than his body type. Christopher Walken's in this as the Emperor too. I thought that was an interesting choice, and it's fine. I love seeing Christopher Walken. He's a very toned down Christopher Walken, so he's not doing his normal thing. But it was okay in that instance. But I do have to go, because I just can't hold it back anymore. One of my big issues that I have with this movie, and this is where it's going to start getting into some spoilers, and I go on in great detail, further detail in my written review of this. And that is going to be of Zendaya, but not of Zendaya. It's going to be of the character of Chani. And Chani, Chaney, whatever it is you want to say. So the character of Chaney. So in the book, the character of Chaney has a role within this society, within this culture. In many ways, she's involved with some of the things with the Reverend Mother, for instance, with the Bene Gesserit. So she has some knowledge of these things, and she's very much bought into this world, right? She is a part of it. And that was something that I always really liked about that character in the book, was that she was able to be the one to kind of help bring Paul further in, like to actually fully realize what he was called to be, right? She was there as that supporting figure. She was there as being one of those arms of support in that way. And it was something that was always very nice, but it was also one where, okay, it makes sense for the character that she is playing, this very secondary role, and it works, right? Especially within the culture that they are building. This is very much rooted in, and you can tell very clearly that the writer of the book, the writer of the original story, found that the Fremen, who are portrayed in this movie, have a lot of similarities to Muslims, right? There's a strong Islamic connection with the religion of the Fremen and some of the practices that they have, and a lot of that carries over even into this movie. That being said, one of the character elements that does not carry over is the character of Chaney. Chaney is not in this movie. I just want to say that straight up. Chaney does not exist in this film. Zendaya's character might be called Chaney, but that is not Chaney. What they've decided to do is they decided to take the character of Chaney and turn it into a girl boss. And I know that some people have in their reviews been saying, oh, it's not really that much of a girl boss, but maybe it leaves it open to potentially being that in the future. I'm going to say straight up, no, they just turn her straight up into a girl boss in this movie, okay? Because in the book, she's not this badass warrior. She's not this person that's leading everybody and is totally like, antisocial when it comes to all the religious stuff. And so they make up a completely different character. That's what I think bothers me so much about it, is that if you wanted to have your strong female character, because hey, it's 2024, we have to have that now, right? You already have that. The Lady Jessica is an incredibly strong character in the book, is a incredibly strong character in the film. She's literally the leader of this tribe. She is the religious leader of this group. So you could have much more heavily relied upon her and built on that part of her character if that's something that you really want to do. But instead, this is, again, the modern Hollywood take. It's not anything to do, because I know some people get caught up with when there's gender swaps or when there's race swaps. And again, if the character is the same, okay, I hear where people are coming from with those types of things, but overall, if the character's the same, that's fine. This is someone where it felt like they wrote a completely new character and said, well, we can't just have a new character. We have to give them a name. Let's give them the name Chani and just say, oh yeah, it's the same person. It's not the same person at all. Other than the fact that she has a relationship with Paul, there is no similarities between them. From the very beginning of the film, when you start to get to know a little bit more about her, she's one of these girls that's like off to the side, hanging out with her other female warriors, right? Because they have to have that dynamic, right? And what she's doing is she's sitting back and she's saying, oh yeah, all these religious zealots. I mean, am I right? They're religious zealots. We don't buy into that. Are you kidding me? Again, not Chani. That simply is not Chani. So that is the issue that I really have ultimately with this movie, and the thing that really just ticked me off, like from that very moment. And again, this is at the very beginning. They're showing this. I'm like, oh, okay. So they've decided just to change everything about her character, to completely retcon her character, to turn her into an independent girl boss, independent, don't need no man. That's what they decided to do with her, right? And she has a couple of lines saying, the men and women here, we are equal with one another, which again, in hindsight or in context, it doesn't mean all that much. But when all these other things are brought in, you're like, oh, okay, so she just became the vehicle for the modern day identity politics to be pushed into this movie. And that's the most annoying thing about it all, because it happens the entire movie. Every single time she comes on screen, every single scene she's in, you're like, okay, that's not what Chani does. Okay, wait a minute, that's not a part of her. So this is a girl who, again, in the beginning, in the book, is someone that is involved. She's very much bought into everything with the religion, right? She is a supporting character in the way supporting characters should be. And now in this movie, what they've decided to do is just turn her into, again, this independent warrior who don't need no man, who could do things all on her own. And that's exactly what happens at the end, right? She's the one challenging Paul constantly throughout the movie, always challenging him, never buying into who he is. And what happens at the end? She leaves him. And what does the movie end on? The movie about Paul Atreides, the movie about the Messiah of this world, right? It's Dune Part 2, but guess what? If you see the end of the movie, you think, oh, this is the Chani show now, apparently. Because it literally just ends on her in this defiant action of, I've left and I'm standing strong, independent. Again, if it weren't 2024, I would say, what in the world's going on here? But it is 2024, and so I can't say I'm all that surprised. And I know people have been warning about this too. The thing that bothers me, though, is that so many people, I think, are downplaying this. I think they're downplaying how important it is. Again, when your final shot is on her, not on Paul Atreides, not on Timothée Chalamet, the lead of the movie, but is on Zendaya and this made-up character of Chani who is not anything like the character from the book, okay, that's sending a bit of a message. When the character is nothing compared to, or not anywhere close to being the same character from the book, okay, you're like, wait a minute, why did you decide just to make up a brand new character? Every character goes through changes. This happens. Every single time there's an adaptation from a book to a movie, there's always going to be changes. But as a comparison, imagine, if you will, someone decided to take Harry Potter, and everyone knows that, oh, Hermione Granger, she's the brains, right? She's the very strong, very smart female character. Well, imagine if someone made the movie and said, you know what? I just really want to give a much stronger voice to redheads, and so I'm going to make Ron very, very smart, very, very intelligent, and he's going to be the one that ends up taking this over. You would say, no, that's not Ron. That has nothing to do with his character. That kind of ruins the dynamic. Well, guess what? That's what they did with Chani. Not that she's anywhere close to in the books being at that same level, but I think you get my point, right? That they've just decided to change the character completely for this, and it is just bothering like no end. So if this is the kind of thing that would bother you, if you are a book purist by any means, and I'm not really a book purist, right? Because this is the only change that really bothered me because of how much of a deal they made of it, how much the filmmaker made a deal with it by the choices that they made. And so I think it's something that is being undermined. I think it's being something that is being, not really given as much attention in a lot of other people's reviews. And I think it is something that needs to be called out because I'm sorry, this ain't it. Great acting all throughout by so many phenomenal actors, beautiful cinematography, just, again, so much compelling visual storytelling going on. But this one thing, it does make a difference because it does show, okay, there are things being used in this movie as a vehicle to push for nonsense. And I'm tired. I'm so sick and tired of Hollywood doing this. And when one of my favorite directors, Denis Villeneuve, is doing this now with this movie, with this character, do better, Denis, because I love your work, man, but that kind of crap, not cool. Anyway, overall, I give this film a rad score. As you can see right now, over on Critic List, it has a most excellent score. I think a lot of people are going to love a lot of things about this movie. It is a long film. You definitely feel that length, especially towards the middle of the film. But as I said, that one thing, if you care about the books, if you care about source material, we hear this a lot, right? Respect the source material. This is, I think, an example where the source material is not really being respected because instead it's being used as some vehicle for some political storytelling nonsense. And I think that it is something that absolutely needs to be called out. And I hope more and more people are adding their voices to this criticism. But those are my thoughts on the movie. Have you seen Dune Part 2? Again, so many great things about it. And I think it's a film that I think a lot of people are going to like. I know my wife's probably going to also like this film too, but she's also kind of one of those not necessarily book purists, but someone who actually can notice the changes and wants the changes to actually make sense. This is the case where the change, it kind of reminds me a lot about Toy Story 4, when Bo Peep just gets retconned into this, this independent girl boss character, and you're like, wait a minute, that's not all what Bo Peep was like. Guess what? That's exactly what happens here. Only it's just even more egregious in different ways. But let me know your thoughts about this. Did it bother you at all? If you still watching on, if you still watch through the spoiler portion, let me know in the comment section down below. If that's video, smash that like button, light that fire button, I smash the rumble button as well. You guys are all amazing and beautiful people. Have a wonderful rest of your day. And as always, God bless. And now for a very special shout out to all of my February Chosen of Valhalla members, starting off with my Patreon supporters of Father Luca Illich, Rosetta Allen, check out her YouTube channel, Eagle Rider, and Miss Martin Muses, check out her YouTube channel by the same name. Also to my Subscribe-Star peeps, Matt317, check out his Twitch channel by the same name, Mr. Roy, and ZK-Man, check him out over at xtheboundaries.co. And if you want your name shouted out at the end of every live stream and video, go ahead and check out the top link in the video description below, where you can access things like podcast episodes that I do special for my members. I also do, of course, the verbal shoutouts, also the listed shoutouts, and a bunch of other things, including giveaways, access to a giveaways channel on my Discord, giving away Blu-rays and 4Ks. I've fallen behind a little bit, but I'm going to easily make that up for the month of February, so now is a great time to join to get access to that page. You guys are all amazing and beautiful people. Have a wonderful rest of your day. A blessed Lent, which starts in just a couple of days. And as always, God bless.